Okay.
Relax. It's cheap.
Okay. Ready? Okay. Why is it that the first mitzvah after Matan Torah, I mean, there really is Sholom-Bamidbar, but I mean, the first, when it gets down to the mundane inyanim, is Geneva. The din of Eved Ivri is only by Ganav. The forced Eved Ivri, he can sell himself, but when Bezdin sells, it's only for a Ganav. So, l'chayre, you should be talking about higher subjects. When you're talking about Matan Torah, you're talking about people that got close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So why are you talking about such mundane averis as Geneva? So the Shiva answered that to be a Ganev, you have to be a Kaifer. In other words, we all believe, or we should be believing, that is a nice of Shalodim Ksuvin Rosh Hashanah. Right? And if you think you can take something God doesn't want to give you, then you're a kaifer. You think you have powers beyond God's, and that you don't have. So Mamela, you're a kaifer. And the einish that we have, we'll talk about what that einish is what do you call it? Is be sold as an Eved. Now, I want to show you that the Torah calls you that too. It's not just the Shivas Achidush, but we have Parshas Vayikra. It talks about Osham. Yeah. So it says like this. There's 5 Asham. There's more than the Torah though. So it talks about first in Asham Me'ilah. Nefesh Kisimo Mao, someone who is Mao. V'choto b'shgoga, Nikoche Hashem, Levi's Hashem al Hashem. Okay, he sinned. He has to bring his king. He has to bring back the Kodesh the 5th. Didn't say anything bad about him, just that he did something that was wrong. Okay, he said that something was wrong. Now come to Asham Gzelis. Okay. Nefesh Kisechta, V'mo'al Mal B'Hashem. Not Mo'amal ben Hegdish, but by Hashem, the Chichesh by Misa, and that he stole. That man is denied God. Because by denying this Keach, he denies God.
Which parent? Which
The Parshas by Osham. Osham Gzelis, by Osham Gzelis.
Which parent?
Perik. Probably 5. Yeah, it's the last one, and then 5. Hey. Yeah. Okay.
The person probably doesn't even think when he steals. He sees it, he wants it, he takes it. He has a husband.
There are some. Obviously, you see the guys who plan Genevas and have cheshbein. It's not something I walk through. What do you call it? In the store. He throws something he puts in his pocket. You know, we're talking about something that I had to plan and went. I mean, all of them are included, but it isn't the same thing. Okay. Just like I want to tell you a chiddush maybe over there. It's Negeya, and then we'll talk about Ivri again. The lashon of the pasuk gerade is, and the Gemara is Mizaynaisav Shalodim Ktuvim Leim Rosh Hashanah. It doesn't say Parnasosim Ktuvim Leim Rosh Hashanah. It says his expenditures are written in other words, what he funds for food is decreed. Food, they're not dafke fruit, anything you spend it on him, it decrees. Some of the Rishonim seem to put one next to the same thing. It's Mezainis, Panose, but it doesn't say that. It says Mezainisov. So it makes a difference in how the Hanhogas Oilam is and how we have to realize it. In Emerson, if we believe it was talking about Panose, So Erev Rosh Hashanah, we should all take every penny we have out of the bank, make the biggest party you can have, and because next on Rosh Hashanah starts a new Gzeira. So what's the point of the old Gzeira? Right, it's gone. Doesn't say that. Or what's the point of what we call a savings account? The pshat's like this. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't want a person to change his job every year. And we all are going to have a certain amount of hitzoyas different in certain years. You have your daughters have to get married, so you have to make a wedding. Your sons are getting bar mitzvah, you have to make a bar mitzvah. All of these things are above and beyond the normal life. So how do you get money for this? Well, obviously I have to change my job. I have to get a more shtadlus to make more money. I have to make more money. But if I change my job, that means that the Rebbe, let's say the Rebbeim, will all quit the yeshivas every through 5 years, come in for a year, go out again for a year, depends how many kids they got, and everything there. By the time they retire, they only taught 4 years. I mean, it doesn't sound very, what do you call it, that you have trained Rebbeim and so on. It's obviously the Rebbeim wants us to be able to maintain our regular lifestyle, and a regular parnosa, and a regular what do you call it. So he makes it that if we put away money, it's not counted on the year that you got it, because it didn't do you any good that year. Just sat in the bank, didn't do anything. But when I come to spend it, on that year it's counted in that year. So therefore it's Mizoynoisav Shalodam Ksuvin Leim Rosh Hashanah. His expenditures are from Rosh Hashanah. To understand now this einish of mechira. In Emerson, all the gambler has to do is pay back. So if he has the money to pay back, you don't become an eved. The truth is, it's very rare that you'll ever be able to have an eved ivri that's sold by Bezdin. Because even if he has no money to pay back for the Geneva, his Geneva has to be worth what you're going to pay for him as an eved. And I can't say it goes to the penny, maybe. In other words, let's say, for instance, he sold $10,000. His value is $5,000. So obviously not going to be sold. Or vice versa, his value is $20,000. So he also isn't going to be sold. You're going to say his value is, he owes $9,987, and his value is $10,000 because you argue it in rounded numbers. I assume that's the same thing. And maybe even 1,100, same thing. That I don't know what the halacha would be. But the idea is not that he has to become an eved. The idea is to teach the person what we think of you. We consider you an eved. Now, what do you mean an eved? You got degraded as far as demoted, if you want to put it. A yid has a din of kedushas Yisrael, and therefore he's also to live with a shifcha, even a shifcha kananis, which has laws like mitzvahs kisha about, so he hasn't got kedushas Yisrael, and it's also for a regular person to marry one of them. But you, being an eved ivri, you're mutter. In other words, you're an eved. You're not a free person that you can say that you're a higher mensch. You're not a higher mensch. You're an eved. That's what the bench wants to teach you. Also, what's the purpose of this type of, selling for an eved? What do you accomplish? In Emerson, it's the best rehabilitation job you can do. We don't believe in prison. I mean, sometimes you need it. Guys chayiv mis and stuff. But under normal circumstances, we don't have prison. But the person has to have some kind of rehabilitation. So if you sell him to a person who's successful, because the only one that's going to undertake by having an Eved Ivri is someone, first of all, who can afford to buy him. Secondly, who is willing to go into the kiruv business, because he's got to, it says, Misha kona Eved Ivri kona odein latzmai, because you can't make him feel like a slave. So therefore, if there's, let's say, one steak in the house, the Eved gets it. There's only one bed in the house, the Eved gets it. Only one air-conditioned room, the Eved gets it. Everything the Eved gets ahead of everybody else in the family. So what's so bad of being an Eved? But you're still an Eved. That's the difference. You're still an Eved. But for the bosses, it's very hard to take such a thing because, hey, here I thought I was going to have the steak tonight and I got to give it to the Eved.
I know.
So all of these things is a point that he has to be able to accept this on himself. The Eved is watching this person who is successful. He's able to have him, who cares about people because he's trying to rehabilitate him. And he lives with him for 6 years. And he sees the way he deals. He's honest. He's successful anyway. God's blessing him. There's no point in stealing. You might as well be an honest person, and that's what he learns from there. And that was the whole purpose, the rehabilitation. Now, sometimes the guy sets up his life that, he gets a shifcha, kananis. You can only get it, though, if he's married. He has a shifcha kananis. And he says, and he has children from her. And these children are slaves. They have no yichus to him at all. They're not considered his children halachically at all in any way. But they're physically his children, biologically. And he says, I want to stay being an Eved. First of all, I find it very convenient. I get 3 meals a day. I live in a good room. Everybody, all the good stuff in the house is for me specifically. Either I eat as good as everybody else or I eat better. One of the two. And the same thing goes for everything else. And therefore, if you really what kind of job can you really give him? I can't give him taking out the trash. Can't give him that. I can make him the CEO of my company, maybe. Those things I can do. But he's not... I can't give him any servitude or any job that he feels that it's servitude. He can't polish my shoes. He can't do any things of that sort. And because of that, he tries, this is a good place to be. There are stories of in the world, in the United States, little hick towns of a homeless man where when it starts to get cold, he steals something and they put him in jail for a year, for the whole year, and he comes out again when it's summertime. Stuff like that. He got whatever he got for stealing, he'd probably be more for drunk driving or whatever it is that they want to get arrested for in order that he should be able to have warm. And here you have it. So what would a person not want to do this? And that's why the Indian of making a matzeh, that the Bavode Lo'ilam, there is a time though, we force him out. In other words, you've had enough rehabilitation, now go out and live your life. Now, of course, it goes after the Yovel, doesn't mean 50 years, because whatever the Yovel turns up, it could be as long as 50 years, but it could be usually, it's going to be somewhere in the middle of the Yovel. So whatever it is, he's got to go out on his own. There's no way he can get away with it. You're forced to get back into the business of being a Jew. And that's what we force him into. On the other hand, the Rebbeinu Shalom made a din of yud. Let's say you want to sell your daughter as a shifra. Now, we were talking about the father selling the daughter. Now, you got to be a pretty rotten guy willing to sell your daughter for a shifra, man. But no, it's not so. I sell it to the rich guy. And the rich guy has a din of yiyud that he should marry her or his son should marry her. And if they don't like it, if they marry her, so then they have to treat her like a regular wife no matter what. And you can't claim, oh, you became my wife because of being of shifra, because you were, what do you call it, I made yiyud. No, you didn't make yiyud. You mekadesh me like all other women. I'm your wife, and that's it. And again, she wouldn't have a position against, if he'd be the first wife that he has, she'd have the din of the first wife. Because the guy be the din of Oina, whatever the din of Oina is, to the first wife, the second wife only gets half. The third wife only gets a third, and so on. So the first wife remains fully, so that means that you can't take anything away from her, no matter what. So it's a way simply spreading the wealth, if you want to be about that. In other words, you have your son is rich, you're rich, so you take a poor girl, and you, because who else would sell their daughter? You know, except the person. But if you don't take it, obviously you have to let her free. And the next dinim, they said these, in a way, I wanted to add on to what the Shiva said before. You know, we said this in the end of Mishpatim, and the beginning and the end of Mishpatim is still the end of Matan Torah, and Parshas Yisro is Matan Torah. So why they hack in the middle Mishpatim? So I think first of all, these were the laws that were given before the days when I think we spoke about last week about the union of 3 different Kabbalahs. Yeah? You know? Okay. We'll get to it then. There really are 3 different Kabbalahs. And these are the laws that were given after the first Kabbalah. And what he's telling you, if you're going to steal, then forget about all these laws. All these laws are benod mechaveri, more or less, mazik, ganev, all these things, and murder. Whatever it is there. If you don't believe in this, if you're able to steal, then forget about this. It's not negeya. You don't believe in God. Now it goes into maki ish v'meis moishumas. If you kill a person, mazed, you get death. If you kill somebody b'shoygeg, you got to go to Golos. They're both in the same parsha. These are 2 psukim between 2 samachs. It means there's one parsha for these 2 psukim themselves. And Rashi says, so what does it mean? It means that the Rebbeinu Shalom makes his justice in the world, that he has a man that's chayiv misa, and he has a man that's chayiv golus, and he makes them meet in a place, and the guy that's chayiv golus kills the person that's chayiv misa, and this time they put him into golus, so he took care of both people. The one that was chayiv misa and the one that's chayiv golus. My kasha always was, what happened the first time? He said that we gave the guy his chayiv golus, right? That means he already killed once. So if he killed one, why isn't he in golus? It's a lame shot. It's not necessarily that he killed somebody. I think we discussed this. I'm not going to remember again if we did. But what we talk about murder. By us, murder is not first-degree murder. No, it's premeditated. It is if you're careless. That's murder. If you don't care if you kill somebody, that's murder. So the fact that we are careless, and Moshe Rabbeinu realized that this is that Klal Yisrael is so, and therefore he made the three. He jumped in to make the first mitzvah he had before he knew he was going to die. Before he went into Eretz Yisrael, even though they were valueless until they came to Eretz Yisrael, was to separate three cities from the Noshom V'Tzeach. And the Rebbeinu Shalom is the shayach from the Gemara. If he gave him a yashikeach for making it, or he had a tainetim for making it, like you're sticking up for the Ratzah. But the reason that he stuck up for the Ratzah is because we're all Ratzah, unfortunately. We're not really not careful. How many times we do things thinking we can do it, and and then in the end we can't do it, and we drop it, and underneath us happens to be somebody. We drive without looking when we're going. These are all Ratzah. They're real Ratzeach. It's not, there's no, what do you call about it? So the question is, how come you don't kill all the time? Because nobody that's Chayev Misa is in front of my car. That's why. The Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't just let people get killed, stamazay. The person has to be Chayev Misa. And if he's Chayev Misa, and I have a guy that's careless, I let him meet him and he gets killed. But that time there were no edus. No one saw him do this. And therefore he drove away and that was it. But what do you call it? The second time, the Rebbeinu Shalom says, this doesn't happen 2 times. If you're careless a second time, that time already you're not going free. And that's why he says if he meets from someone's chayiv good because he's not careful. He wasn't careful after the killing of the first person. You're going to go to Gullus. How am I going to make you go to Gullus? I'm going to make you kill the one that's chayiv misa. And that's why it's one parsha. Trying to figure what we can give because yeah. This is something that may be neged to us and it always scares me. It says, Kiseitze yesh umotza kaisim, a fire went out and it found thorns. V'nechal godish, and the godish, which is the good stuff, was burnt. Oy hakam oy hasodeh, whatever it is. So Rashi brings down this Gemara that you see from here that the fire was first starting, and yet they're telling me that the Godish was already burnt. How's that possible? It talks about Tzadikim and Rishoyim. Kaitzim are the Rishoyim of the Rebbeinu Shalom wants to bring something to punish the Rishoyim, a tragedy. Churban Beis Hamikdash. Doesn't make a difference what it is. Hitler Yimach Shmoi. In there. So at that time when he wants to bring this, even now, that's what scares me so much, because how many tzaddikim died during COVID, how many grace of people. What is the future holding for us? Because it says, Koidem haro nesaf ha-tzaddik. The Rebbeinu Shalom makes it that the tzaddik is taken away before the bad comes. Now, you'll say, well, not everybody gets that. We have to have people to rebuild. So the Gemara in Shabbos brings down a case that in the time, in the first place, Hamikdash, that the Rebbeinu Shalom told the Malach to put a tough Chaim on the tzaddikim's heads. And the Midas Adin came and said, why are you saving these people? He said, because they're tzaddikim. He says, yeah, but they didn't care for anybody else. So he says, the Rebbeinu Shalom said, even if they would have tried to save other people, it wouldn't have helped. So the Midas Adin says, the Fanecha Golu, you know, but how they didn't know. So since they didn't know, they really didn't care. So Rebbeinu Shalom says, if that's the case, okay, they got to die first. Okay. You gotta die for it. That doesn't mean all the people that died are these type of people, but I'm just saying. But they have this mila that the Rebbeinu Shalom will take him away before the Ra. Now the shaila is, isn't it worse for the person to live through this, through all the tragedy and then rebuild? He has to see the tragedy. You're right. The Rebbeinu Shalom needs him, and therefore, because he needs him, he's going to keep him alive. Hopefully, he'll have him in a safer place. Sometimes he won't, for whatever reasons we don't know. But in that case, those people will come to rebuild Klal Yisrael. And those people had to suffer to see the tragedy of Klal Yisrael, how much the soil was decimated in order to be able to rebuild. But the Rebbeinu Shalom needs those people. I assume there'll be a tremendous schar for those people. But if you try to bring back, I mean, most of you probably, this is all ancient history. It's not even history. It's, I don't know, it's ancient. But the ones who lived through the war, even as kids, knew what happened. And therefore, this is the thing. And as each tzaddik leaves the world, my question always becomes, why? What's the Rebbeinu Shalom want from us? You see the concept of cheskas kashrus. You have a person that's a shomer, shemachinam, and he loses what he was. So he has to swear that he wasn't posheya. Otherwise he has to pay. A lot of people will pay and not swear. Why? Not because they admit that they were guilty, but a shvu is a very difficult thing. Even if you swear the emes, it's not good for the person who swears. On the other hand, if there's a reason that people will think bad of you because you don't want to swear, I guess that would be the point of swearing. But the Torah trusts you to swear. Normally you'll say if a person is willing to steal, he's willing to swear false too. So what did we accomplish by making him swear? But the idea is we trust the person. You don't think. The only thing is the one who lost the money doesn't trust him. So therefore he has to swear what Bezdin says he swore, he's innocent. And if he pays, he's still innocent. Because we really don't know why. And this we find in even our days, a lot of times in civil cases, I'm not going to talk about which kind, but you can think about it yourself. The courts are able to run a person down to the ground and cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend himself. And even that will be even in criminal cases. Probably even a criminal case. I shouldn't have said a civil case, a criminal case. So your person is accused. He has to get a defense lawyer. Defense lawyer is going to charge him a lot of money, especially if he wants one that's going to win. Right? In the end, the attorney tells him, look, you're running out of money. I'll tell you what, and I've heard about this. It's not pshat that I took all your money, so now I'll still do the job for you. You can't afford me anymore. So I recommend either you plead guilty to a misdemeanor, and I'll get you the deal. And therefore, it'll be over. But at least they feel they accomplished, that they arrested the guy and actually convicted him. And so they got something on their badge, and you won't have to go to jail, you won't have to do anything, no restitution, everything will be fine. So why didn't you tell me to do this originally? I don't know. But anyway, the guy does it. And then people come along and say, he's admitted to this thing Hey, I admitted it because I couldn't afford to pay the lawyer anymore. Not because I was guilty, but the world accepts it as guilt. In fact, in most cases, the fact that you are accused, you're already found guilty. And that's called, even in American law, that's a law that is you're innocent until proven guilty. But the truth is you're not innocent until proven guilty. You're not guilty until proven guilty, that's all. But innocent you're not. And that's unfortunately a case that a lot of people suffer from. It says over here, he said, I didn't say about the Rikabolos, right? Okay. Now it says an interesting thing. We know a din, in Volm a few times it said that you should got to take care of the Levi, the Ger, the Yosem, and the Almona, and also your son, your daughter, your Shifcha, and your Ebed. So he says, what does it mean? 4 of yours? You take care of 4 of mine, I'll take care of 4 of yours. So, okay, I understand a Levi is Ligion Shel Melech. They're special people dedicated to the Bnei Shalom. Okay, so you got to take care of them. A Ger left his old life to come serve me. He's my person, I take care of him. Okay, we understand that. But a Yosem and Almana, why? I mean, you want to say he takes care of poor people, he takes care of poor people. But why is it got to do with being a Yosem and an Almana? So the pasuk here says like this: if you happen to give tzar to a Yosem and Almana, I'm going to listen to their pain. They're crying out to me, and I'm going to get very angry at you, and I'll kill you. And therefore your wives will be almanis, and your children will be Yisraelim. So the Ben Shem is saying, I made the Yosem and the Almana. I got to take care of them. And they're my people. Why? Because I made them. But they think that, but you forced me to make them, whatever it is. Again, you have to understand in the Einish. I don't know if I spoke about this last time either or not. Taran Adin, that if you take off the mezuzahs when you move out of an apartment or a house, and a Jew just bought the house from you, right, and you didn't leave on the mezuzahs, or the guy, the owner of the house is a Jew, and he hopes to rent it to a Jew, you're not allowed to take the mezuzahs off. And what you can do is charge the person who's moving in for having your mezuzahs, but I have to leave them on until we can make this deal. And if I take them off, you'll lose your wife and kids. You know, a murderer doesn't get his wife and kids dead. So what do you mean you can lose your wife and kids? So I'm shouting the Gemara like this. It doesn't mean you will lose them. What he's telling you is that the punishment reserved for this is the loss of a wife and kids. That means aggravation that you would have for losing your wife and kids. That's how much aggravation for just taking off the mezuzah. Right? But it won't happen unless your wife and children deserve to have this happen to them. If they don't deserve it, it won't happen to you. So the fact is, when everyone dies or anyone has a tragedy in any case, everyone affected by that tragedy deserves that punishment of the aggravation, at least. Right? And that's the point. If one of them wouldn't have deserved it, the person would not have been punished. So that's a very important lesson for us, and we have to be careful because we could save the world. As many of us can save other people, and we just sometimes don't care enough to do it. Don't do it for yourself, do it for them, and then maybe you'll care more. Shiva says in Kesev Talvis es Hami, so honey, says, if you will loan money to my people. So Rashi brings down that im doesn't really mean, there's 5 translations to the word of im. And it doesn't mean if in this case, it means when or as. So why would the Torah put it in the lashon of, that you can translate it as if? And that means I don't have to lend anybody money. It's if I lend anybody money, I have these and these halachas. But Shiva says that from here, we learn that the person is supposed to perfect his midos. The midos that you care about people, and you're willing to loan them money when they need it, even though they may not pay back. I mean, that's the reason you're afraid of loaning it to them. But the truth is, you should loan them the money. Why? Because the Bein Shalom is the one really that takes care of everything. And if you're doing it the right way, you won't lose by it. I'd like to explain to you a little bit what the ribbis is. Let me just give an overview. It's not really the tam. Everything in the world that you own, you have a use for. And therefore, if you want to rent it to somebody, that means you're giving up some usage of it that you could have had time now, or the fact that it may wear out, and I lose that many times that it's going to wear out from. And those scarce, therefore, I'm going to charge you for it. Okay? It's fair. In fact, there used to be a bank that says, we rent money. Okay? They don't rent money, they loan money. What I would explain what rent money would be, if let's say I want to have a wad of $100 bills to look good like I'm rich, put it in my pocket, so I want to rent from you $1,000 in hundreds. Okay, that's called renting. Understand? But if I'm not using the money, I'm using it to buy something. It's the only use of money is not for itself. The only thing that it's good for is what it can get. And therefore, the time that you don't need it, you have nothing to do with it. So the Torah says, if that's the case, if somebody needs it, we want you to loan it to them. And you can't charge interest because why are you charging interest? It would have been in the ground anyway. It had nothing to do with anything. You say, no, it wouldn't have been in the ground. I would have had it invested. I would have had it in the bank. I would have had this. I would have had that. Okay, that's the case. Make your head to the skin. That's that you're entitled to, that money. But you're not entitled to charge interest for the loan. That's the difference. Now, unfortunately, what we do is we loan money, is loaning money, and we charge interest. But we make the interest look like a hetarisky. That's the difference. But again, if the reason is I'll give you the money, where I could have made it in the bank, and therefore I'm giving you the money, okay, so you're entitled to that money, like I said. Even let's say I can invent a normal, let's say, investment, 5-10% maybe, right? But if I ask you for 30%, right, that's already a high interest rate, which nobody usually has in the things there. So you're only charging me that because I need the money. And I need the money, you don't have to take advantage of my needing the money, and you couldn't have earned it. So therefore, you have no real head to risk it. You have to be able to actually learn, be able to earn it. There's an interesting story many years ago. It was a shout to the Rosh Hashiva Zatzal by a broker. At that time, they were, what do they call it? I think when the broker loans the money on margin, you can buy on margin. I don't know what margin is now, but when the 29 crash was, their margin was 10%. I remember margin being 50%. I don't know what it is now. But a guy wants to borrow a margin, He's borrowing from a fruma, a broker. He's a fruma guy. And obviously it's a stock that goes up and down, or whatever it is there. But the whole idea is of a heteriske is when I come to the person, we were supposed to make a deal that when I'm investing it in a business that's going to produce, let's say, 20%, 10 for you and 10 for me, and that's what it's going to be. What happens if I come to you and I say it didn't produce? So I say, you have to swear. Okay, swear. So he swears. That means the one who borrowed the money, he knows what happened to it, and he's telling you, I swear we lost the money. Okay. What happens, though, with the broker and the investor, who knows better what happened to the money, the broker or the investor? The broker. So how is he going to swear? I mean, how is the investor, if the other guy knows what happened more than I do? So Mamela doesn't help such a thing.
In general, when you know that the person's not going to make a shvur, and he's going to end up paying the expected rate.
The guy shouldn't have borrowed on that kind of case, but the truth is, you're right, if the banks that have heteriskis, if they would know that, especially the Goyish banks, the Jewish bank maybe is willing to take the gamble, but a Goyish bank, they'll have a heteriskit, and something I would say they have an heteriskit, they don't even know what it means, and a guy can swear and not pay the loan, they would never make a heteriskit, because they don't trust anybody, they think everybody's a liar. So therefore, they would never go along with it. So you have to really go along with it. It's not, otherwise it's a game. It's just a joke. It doesn't mean anything. That is, you have to be able to. But we're worried, or we understand that a shvuah being a very difficult thing to want to do, especially if they'll make it on a sefer Torah, which you're allowed to do is called a shvuah chamura. So you're allowed to demand that from the guy. So in a chinami. So we hope that he's honest, and if he makes the shvuah, what can I do? I lost the money. But if I'm not,
any shutfut, you done shvuah. All the heter iska, they mean shutfut. All the concept heter iska, meaning I partner with you, and I don't want any partner in each one. When I go to business, you trust me, I'll give you the paper, the result, that's it. Why here you need shvuah? Like all the concepts is the partner.
yeah, but you
come for the shoot.
you gave me the money. I told you I was going to invest it,
Okay.
and then I come to you and I tell you I lost it.
But I partner.
Yeah, I invested, and the investment went bad, so I don't have it, right?
Okay.
So I say I don't trust you. Swear.
You not trust me? That's why you could partner with me before. If you not trust me.
Once I thought you were honest, so I lent you the money. But now that I see you trying to tell me you lost it, so I want to know what happened.
And then we partner only in the way I win.
Yeah.
But that's not the way life goes. Okay, well, I understand.
Okay. Yeah, kisire chamer sonacha. Problem?
What should I press? Admit? Where's that? Yeah. Good.
Pasuk says, if you see the chamor of your enemy falling by the wayside, you're supposed to help him. Oziv Tazvim, you're supposed to conquer your hate and help him. The Gemara says, you're not allowed to hate anybody. I'm sorry. Now they tell you it's called Sinas Chinam. Gemara says, or let's say, I say, come to me and they say, you're not allowed to hate anybody for nothing. I don't hate people for nothing. I hate them for a lot of things. They stopped my business. They stole my wife. They made my kids go off the derech. There's a lot of things that what people did to me. And I hate them for that. And the din is, that's called Sinas Chinam. More on Shabbos, if you want to see, it's Rashi within Shabbos, Lamed Beis, on the word Sinas Chinam, that it says only the thing that can have Sinas Chinam, if you see a person do an Aveir of Arayas, B'tzine, that means you're the only one that saw him, and you can't say Edis and Bezin against him, because that would be Lashon Hara, so you have a right to hate him. What does hate him mean? Hate him means I don't say hello to him. That's what hate means. He says hello to me, I have to answer him. But I don't greet him first. That's what hate means. So the Gemara is, the thesis is, would he have it says in Torah you have your enemy. So what enemies? It's talking about, I hated you, Taki, because the Torah told me I'm supposed to hate you. I mean, I'm not talking to you. I'm not greeting you. When a guy lives in my neighborhood and he's the Shagets, and he sees that I don't greet him, automatically he starts hating me. And we keep hating each other back and forth. That's the only Seinah you're entitled to. And that Seinah, we want you to be able to help. Because we want you to love Klal Yisrael, even the one we call your enemy. And this by the brothers with Yosef HaTzadik didn't mean that when they said they were unable to speak to him b'shalom, that means they didn't go out and have a good schmooze with him. But definitely, if he was sick or something, they took very good care of him right away. There's one thing is there's a brother is still, what do you call it? The same thing applies here. We're all we're brothers, so therefore it doesn't make a difference. They're chaytin. I'm like a guy that showed him that I disapprove of your actions. I disapprove of what you do, but I still love you. That's the point that we have to have. And you have to, and this is to conquer it. So sometimes when it has, let's say, to load with an enemy and unload by a friend, the thing is you have to deal with the enemy first. Why? Because that's more important to be kavish your Yetzer Hara and the midas that you want. You feel justified. I'm not helping him. It's good. The thing that I have to help. Okay, go into what the three Kabbalahs were. In Parshas Yisroel, it says, Chol HaShadiba Hashem Nase. I believe it says the word Yachtov. They said it together. Chol HaShadiba Hashem. And Kolom Yachtov. They said Yachtov together. Chol HaShadiba Hashem Nase. Whatever God. Then that was on the third day of Sivan. On the fourth day of Sivan, they said what it says in the end of Mishpatim. They said, Kol hadvorim hashadiba Hashem nase. All the words that God said we will do. Which words were we talking about? Parshas Mishpatim. Eila hadvorim hashadiba. These are the words I want you to speak to them. These are the things. Okay. And that was not accepted by the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's not a Kabbalah. Right? Why? Because when you say, Kol HaShadiba Hashem Nase, whatever God says, I'll listen to. Right? Then you say, all that God has said, I will listen to. That means you listen first to what God said. And then you just happen to agree with everything that he said. So it's like a person saying, what I understand, I do. What I don't understand, I don't do. And that's meaning you accept your own understanding, your own Torah, not God's. And that's not acceptable. So they had to bring korbanos because of that, and that's what the Parshas says. And then they made Nasa v'nishma. So the Shiva asked the Kasha, but normally we translate Nasa v'nishma, we will do, and we will listen to the reasonings after we do. He said, if that's the case, if that's the Maila, we're going to listen afterwards. The Kabbalah in Yisrael was a bigger Kabbalah. We're not interested in listening at all. Any reasons. Whatever God says, that's what we'll do. We're not interested in reasoning. He doesn't have to tell us any reasons. So because of that, he learned that Dasa v'nishma we will do, but not what we want to do. We'll do what our teachers tell us to do, according to our Rebbeim. The reason that this was necessary, I feel, is because it had to give, they had to get rid of the bittul. They had to be mevatel their concept of myself, my own thoughts. I think this is right, I think this is wrong. I have to get rid of that, because that I said, that wasn't acceptable. Even though I agree to whatever the Rebbeinu Shem said, all these mitzvahs that he said, I say it's a great, great, wonderful mitzvahs. But yours, only because you accept it. That's why you accept it. That's not good enough. And again, they used the Lashon kol echad. They all said one time. And so when I listen to how my Rebbe tells me to do it, even though I may disagree with my Rebbe, I don't hear what he's saying exactly. I don't understand. Now, if I come big enough to disagree with my Rebbe, that's a different story. But when talking about I'm a student in class, and the Rebbe told me this is pshat, and I think I don't think that's pshat, and then I want to argue with him. My says it's not. You can't argue with him. Whatever the Rebbe said, that's the din is. And Torah is not a democracy in any that sense. It's always give the mashal. The Rosh Yeshiva would say something, and the whole yeshiva will say he's wrong. Who we're going to paskin like? It'd be a joke, right? So the same idea. Listen, but meanwhile, I'm out of the picture. So therefore, since I'm out of the picture, it's okay. By Nasiv and Ishma, they did not say the word kol echad or yachdav. The reason for it is we all have one teacher. We all have Moshe Rabbeinu. And therefore, automatically, it's one voice. It's one thing. We all accept what he says. And therefore, we don't need our acceptance. He's the one that's telling us what to do. Now, of course, he'll tell us different things at different times, whether we want to hear it or not. That will be already the Indian of chinuch and all that stuff. But the obligation to listen that we have from here. Yeah. Now, the Bein Shem came, this is in Har Sinai, so they said they were able to see the Shechina, whatever that means. And the Bein Shem did not do anything to them. They saw God, they ate and drank. There's different definitions of what it means. One means that they kept staring at the Shechina as if there was eating or drinking. In other words, like, oh, he's my buddy, like that type of an attitude. Or actually, they were actually eating and drinking when the Shechina was there, and you don't stop when the Shechina is there. Stop what you're doing and get and whatever it is, be involved, try to be good. When the Rebbe walks into the class, what happens? Everybody jumps up and runs to their plates, eat. That's normal procedures. How come you guys didn't? The Rebbeinu Shalom takes revenge on them all the way in Parshas Ekev. No, the actual Einish is B'Haleischa. B'Haleischa, it says there in Taveira, Ayiva Aram, and the man made a fire, and he ate the B'Ktsei Ha'am, and they ate in a little bit of the people. So Rashi brings down it can mean either Katsine home, meaning the lower part of the nation, that was the bad guys, and some learn it goes on the good guys, and that's their punishment for what they Vayuchel Vayishtu. Now, what did they do? That's the question. It doesn't say what they did. Just as God was angry and whatever he gives them. So, Shiva, Laim Pshat, I'll just read you the Lashon there in Taveira. Yeah, Yitzhak Omer Moshe. No, sorry. Vayiyom kimisayim Rabbi Bezna Hashem was speaking bad, not Hashem's ears. Vayishma Hashem vayicharapa vativa baneish, and he put a fighter in them. Vatercha b'ktzei hamachna. Now it doesn't say what the bad was. So the Rosh Yeshiva said what was bad was milosnit lalnin. We're talking big guys. They're criticizing what? In other words, just before then, I was talking about that when the machnes, they made the machnes, so they traveled. Sometimes they were there a month, sometimes overnight, sometimes a week, whatever it is there. So imagine this: people come, and it's out, and all three times it's up here Hashem Yachnu, up here Hashem Yisol. That the bench is the one that controls it, not Moshe Rabbeinu, not anyone. So the Rebbeinu, so the people just camped. He takes out his Gemara, he's starting to learn, and he gets involved. And a few hours later, the bugle rings, time to go. Here I'm trying to learn, and God doesn't let me learn. This is criticism that God doesn't like. In other words, there's certain things that there's time for this, and I want you to learn when I want you to learn. Davening time is not learning time. And that's very important for people to know. In other words, today now it's made for tefillah, not for learning. But I gotta finish. I got. You're right. You got it, and that's true. I'm not disagreeing with you, but not now. So when? Don't go to sleep. I really don't care when, but not now. And a lot of times a person brings out, somehow that I would have run the thing better. If I was able to run the world, I'd run it better. Sometimes you say such a stupid thing, and you got to realize that that's kfir. And if you're really criticizing HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's the same thing with Losnit Davening, Losnit Lernen, it's too long davening, you should cut it down. Whatever it is that what our criticism is, it is not a good one. Anyway, have a good Shabbos. Everyone should have a good Chodesh. And next week I think we're still around, right? Purim I don't think we'll make it. Okay. I've written Shabbos, I've written Chodesh.